Diego here. Want to invite you to go check out Publis. Publis is a dog clothing and accessory company based in Austria. 10% of each of your purchases goes to helping dogs in need, whether it's homeless, sick, or ill dogs. This is one of the reasons why we support it. Kiska here is a rescue dog from rural Alaska and our grid office dog. We care about our furry buddies, and we know you do as well. Definitely check out Publis.com. There's a link on the video description, and by clicking on that link, you get a 10% discount on your purchase as well. Hello and welcome to Grid Live Wrap-Up. Joe Samaniego here, along with Ben Schneider, Adam Lemeries, and Kobe Lambeth from the Podium Finish. Be sure to share your questions and opinions in the chat room. We'll love to share them on the air and answer your questions. We had a weekend full of drama all over. Portugal, Monaco, Indianapolis, of course, for the Indy 500, but we'll start with NASCAR at the Circuits of America for the first time. And that racetrack is continuing to build an impressive resume of series racing at Circuits of America. NASCAR became the fifth series that's part of the grid ranking to race there, joining Formula One, Indycar, MotoGP, and the Repco Supercar Series. As well as those series, IMSA and World Endurance Championship have raced there. And overall, pretty much we got a lot to talk about with that race. An impressive start to the race, which started under wet conditions. And for a future trivia question, when you are asked who was the first NASCAR Cup Series driver to lead a lap at Circuits of America in a race, that will be Austin Cindric in the number 33 Ford. However, a lot of people have been talking about what happened in stage 2, that long backstretch. Essentially, we saw a lot of water coming down during stage 2. We saw these high rooster tails. The rooster tails are what happens when that car goes over, lifting up the spray of water, which gets, of course, in the way of everybody, reducing the visibility to near zero. We saw 4 separate accidents occur. The first one, in which we saw Christopher Bell rear end Ryan Blaney. The second one, and a big hit, Bubba Wallace got into the back end of Kevin Harvick, and that got Kevin Harvick a little bit airborne, especially what we saw similar to the next series of crashes. Michael McDowell slowed down. Martin Truex, blinded by that rooster spray, got into the back end, and then Cole Custer nailed Martin Truex Jr. Essentially almost went under Truex's car, lifting that car up in the air. We saw the red flag, and of course we saw the criticism of allowing the drivers to race in such poor conditions on that backstretch. And we even saw Kevin Harvick in a video from Dustin Long said, "We have no business being out in the rain, period." Now, before we start discussing this race, Kobe, we know in IMSA and World Endurance Championship, they have closed cockpit race cars. What are the procedures IMSA does when it comes to racing in the rain?
Well, for starters, Joe, those are sports cars, and they're more equipped to race in the rain than these NASCAR stock cars. And we do see IMSA and the WEC race in the rain every now and then without any major issues. However, you have to draw a fine line here because yes, you can race in rain in sports car racing. We've seen it at Formula One, Indycar as well, and NASCAR over the years. But there's a fine line when it's just too much standing water on the racetrack. You have drivers hydroplaning. You can't see the visibility becomes really tough, as we saw today on the COTA backstretch, and had that really scary accident between Martin Truex Jr. and Cole Custer, and also Bubba Wallace nailing the rear of Kevin Harvick. I think at that point, when visibility is a major issue like that, and there's standing water on the track, that's when you need to decide that it's best to stop the action for the time being. And it's IMSA and the WEC. We've seen times when the rain was just way too much, and they decided to either stop the race for a little while, or call it prematurely. A few years ago, IMSA actually decided to call the Rolex 24 early because there was just too much standing water, and they were basically racing in a pond there instead of prototypes and GT cars. Thought they might want to fire up a boat to finish the Rolex 24. It was really that bad on the racetrack. And also last year, it was raining so hard at one point at Road America, and also there was hail. IMSA decided to throw the red flag, and there was a pause in the action, and then the rain and hail let up for a bit, and then they went back and finished. So it's no different in sports car racing. I think NASCAR made the right call to throw the red flag at 2 points during the race day when conditions were just way too treacherous, and that's exactly what we see in sports car racing, and we saw it today in stock cars.
Now, of course, most of these drivers as well, they came up through short tracks and racing in dry conditions, little experience in the rain, and unlike Formula One, IndyCar, where you have about 20 cars out on the track, you have 40 vehicles, and along with double file restarts and full colors yellow, so of course the pace car and these crazy restarts. Should NASCAR fix their approach to racing in the rain, or just not hold races when it's raining?
NASCAR needs to fix their approach when it comes to racing in the rain. They shouldn't not race in the rain. And look, I like Kevin Harvick. He's a great champion for our sport. He's been around a long time. I know he was frustrated and understandably so, but you know, I think he's got a knee-jerk reaction running high on emotions here. You know, the Sydney Series has raced in the rain several times over the last few years, and they've made it work. You know, I know COTA is a brand new track, and it's the first time the Cup Series has gone there. But to me, you have this series here in NASCAR where every week we hear these are the 40 best drivers in the world. You know, if you have rain tires, if you have a technology to be able to give drivers the opportunity to race in the rain, I think you should take it. Now, when it comes to the conditions, obviously, I think today NASCAR made the right decision at the end of the race to throw the caution flag and eventually the red flag. I think they waited too long to do it the first time the rain got too treacherous, and that led to the incident between Truex and Custer. But when it comes to NASCAR maybe trying to do this in the future, I got to say, like the red blinking brake lights on the back of the cars that are in the windows, to me, those didn't really do too much. You know, a sports car like you'd see in IMSA World Endurance Championship, they have actual lights that make it much easier to see the car in front of you. You know, there's a lot of things that NASCAR could try to do to, I think, improve the product. It's a good opportunity coming up here with the next gen car. I don't think going to single file restarts really did much. Most of the problems were on the backstretch anyway. I think Denny Hamlin even said that over the radio or on Twitter or something like that. I'm not a fan of changing the rules mid-race, but NASCAR needs to look at the problem and address it and try to make it better. But I think, you know, rain racing has been done in stock cars before. I don't see why it can't continue to be done here.
I'll agree with you, Ben. You know, light rain, yeah. Right. NASCAR rain, light rain, yes. Medium rain, yes. Heavy rain, no, thank you. They did a really good job in stopping the race today. You know, the visibility conditions were, you know, not good at all. You know, even though Chase Elliott did win today, they were smart about throwing the red flag the first time around. You know, I wouldn't want to be a driver or even a fan, you know, and seeing what happened today. I'm glad that all the drivers in these crashes walked away, and hopefully in the future with this next gen car, we'll see a lot. Hopefully NASCAR learned a good lesson today when it comes to racing in the rain as the years continue.
Adam, I think you and Ben pretty much summed it all up, but I do agree with you. I think the best thing that NASCAR can do is to learn from this and figure out what went wrong and what they can do moving forward in order to make it better when NASCAR has to run on rain at the road courses.
When it comes to running NASCAR on the road courses, this was a learning, I think, opportunity, especially when you look at the different road courses. Circuits of America designed for Formula One cars, so we have a long backstretch, some great areas for high speed, and then hard braking. I think, especially when we saw towards the end, Kurt Busch getting really scary right in between Austin Dillon and Kyle Busch. I think that was a point where NASCAR like, we could have something bad happen again, like what we saw with especially Cole Custer and Martin Truex Jr. Going forward, I think some of the things maybe NASCAR may want to consider, especially if we come to Circuits of America or when we go to Road America, a much longer, lot of elevation on that road course, maybe look into utilizing local yellows, virtual safety cars a bit more. And if it is raining, possibly having to go towards single file restart, because I know at the end it still saw the cars a little bit spread out, but the big thing, I think the visibility, that was a big thing that got a lot of people by surprise, especially when we saw last year at the Roval. A lot of hard rain, but the visibility wasn't as bad as it was at today's race. And overall, we saw plenty of racing action during stage one and after the Air Titans had worked on that backstretch. A lot of passing all over. Some people anticipated just wreck after wreck, caution after caution. We didn't really get that, besides what happened in stage two. And in fact, stage three, pretty much caution free towards the end until the rain picked up at the end. And we had that scary moment in which Kurt Busch, hydroplaning, just somehow missed front end of Austin Dillon and the back end of his brother, Kyle Busch. NASCAR brought out the caution flag, then the red flag. After a little bit, the race was called official and Chase Elliott was leading and he got awarded the win. Did NASCAR do the right call in ending the race when they did?
I do believe so. If we look at the weather, the conditions were not really good. They've been running in the rain all day long. And, for the fans that were there, I'll give them 100% credit for sticking it out. I'll tell a story real quick. My family and I lived in New Hampshire for 13 years before moving to North Carolina. And New Hampshire Motor Speedway was our home track. One year, my mom and I went there for a NASCAR race for practice and qualifying, and we got completely soaked from our heads to our feet, shoes, socks, and clothes, completely soaked. So, as a fan, I'm glad NASCAR ended the race when they did, because I believe the conditions were gonna get worse as the day continued.
Yeah, unfortunately, it looks like the TV window was getting really close on time there, especially since NASCAR had like a 4-hour window to get the race in. And unfortunately, when TV is involved like that, you have to listen and go with that. And they had to call the race since there was a lot of daylight left. It would have been nice to see them wait it out a bit and see what happens if we could finish the race. But since the track was completely soaked, TV window coming in, I understand why they had to call it early. Really wish we could have kept it going, but hey, it's not the 1990s anymore. We're in the 2020s, and a lot of things have changed in the world.
I got to say, I'm disappointed. I just put out a video on my YouTube channel about Dave Blaney. I'm thinking back to the 2012 Daytona 500, which didn't end until Tuesday morning. Everybody wanted to go home. The track was on fire. Everybody thought they were going to call it, and they waited it out, fixed the track, and got him back running again. So I know Circuit of the Americas is obviously a much different track. You have to factor in the daylight and everything, but the sun still hasn't set in Austin as we're talking right now. And I thought I saw a tweet from Bob Pockrass that said the heavy cell that was at the track was only about 15 to 20 minutes away from moving out. And then there might have been a window to get the jet dryers on the backstretch, push some of the standing water out, and then we could have finished the race. I know the TV window factors in as well, and I think that's unfortunate. But I think ultimately at the end of the day, I know we were talking a little bit before we came on the air. We're going to come up to this problem when we go to Road America in a few weeks as well. I think the race was too long. I think 68 laps around Circuit of the Americas when you're using the full layout and the full circuit. I think even more so when it's raining and you got slower lap times because of that. The race was simply too long. I'd like to see a shorter product, assuming NASCAR comes back to Circuit of the Americas in future years, because I think when you're running up on 3.5, 4 hour run times for these races. I think that's a problem regardless of the weather or any situation. I think, anytime you approach 4 hours, it's certainly not ideal, not just for the TV window, but for, the fans and, keeping them around that long. I thought there were too many laps to begin with.
A lot of laps, and one of the things, especially I think when it comes to racing in the rain, maybe they should look into something where they have a clock there where, okay, we've got 3.5 hours, maybe 4 hours to try to end the race. We've seen IndyCar and F1, if they have a race in the rain and just takes a while, they usually have a TV time limit. So that all the teams would know, and the fans would know too. If the race keeps going this long because of wet weather, this is the cutoff time. I think that would make it really clear to everyone if they had one in today's race that, okay, we're getting to that point, here's a caution. Race is going to probably be ending under the caution, and then the red flag, of course, as we saw. One of the things we saw, of course, Chase Elliott getting that win. He is now the 11th different winner after 14 races. We've got 12 races remaining in the schedule for the regular season. The next one, the Coca-Cola 600 from Charlotte, so no worries about rain tires or racing in the rain, as long as it's not raining, because we don't race in the rain when it comes to the ovals. But should the drivers be worried, especially the ones that don't have win? Kevin Harvick, no win. Denny Hamlin, no win. Drivers like Bubba Wallace, he has a fast car, but just building that new team up, no wins. And of course, everybody else still trying to get a win. Should they be worried?
Well, not necessarily, Joe. I think if you're okay right now, points wise, but don't have a win, I think you can breathe a little bit easier. But I'd be more concerned if we're getting to this point of the season, Coca-Cola 600, and our 2021 Cup program isn't doing what we expected it to do this year in terms of performance. So right now, I wouldn't be too concerned if I'm a Denny Hamlin who's had a lot of consistent runs. I know Stuart Haas has had kind of an up and down season up to this point, but right now I'm not too worried. But if we're getting like towards the end of June into July and I still haven't had a win, especially if we somehow click off more different race winners, then I'd start to get a little concerned.
I still don't see 16 race winners happening. I know 11 and 14's more than we usually see, but I think, Kobe, you basically hit the nail right on the head there. I think if you're Denny Hamlin, you don't have to worry. If you're somebody like a Bubba Wallace who's maybe a little bit further back in the standings, I think you're getting to the point where you almost have to go out and win a race if you want to be serious about feeling safe about making the playoffs.
I have to say, when it comes to Bubba Wallace, those teams, Eric Jones, drivers that are towards the back, they're probably getting a bit more antsy, but especially Denny Hamlin, if he could continue going back in the top 10s, I know this race weekend wasn't that great for him, but of course it's a road course. We have wet weather. If he could go back, Coca-Cola 600, run in the top 10, I think he'll be in great shape. Kevin Harvick, he needs to put together some top 10s as well. I know he wants to win. He's probably really frustrated considering the past success, but I feel those two in particular shouldn't be too worried. And of course, the Coca-Cola 600 will be Memorial Day weekend next Sunday, where we're going to have a special program on Sunday morning for the Indy 500. And today, we now know the 33 starters for the greatest spectacle in sport.
Yeah, first up today was the last row shootout. 5 drivers fighting for the final 3 spots to be in the field of 33 for the 105th running of the Indianapolis 500. Fitz Karen was the first driver out, put it P31, the fastest of all competitors who were simply trying to make the show in the last row shootout. It was still really stunning to see Team Penske and Will Power in jeopardy of missing the race in the first place. Power made the show. He was 32nd fastest. And Simona Di Silvestro claimed a 33rd and final spot, putting Pareto Autosport in the show. A great accomplishment for Beth Pareto's operation, trying to give more opportunities to women in racing. Yesterday, we said Team Penske was struggling with their quality. Are you surprised that it was bad enough for Will Power to be in the last row shootout to begin with?
I was very surprised to see Will Power in the last row shootout. Considering Penske, especially after 1995, when they didn't make the Indy 500 in none of their vehicles, when they have been attempting to make it into the Indy 500, they made it in there. Last year, we did see Chevrolets. They were not 100% compared to the Hondas. I thought this year will be a little bit more closer, but one of the things we saw, all the drivers that didn't make it and all of them in the shootout for the last row, they were all Chevrolet. So clearly, I feel Chevrolet still has a lot of work, and especially for a team like Beretta Autosport, a lot of people, when they were announced, oh, they're going to have affiliate with Penske. That should be a sort of a good indicator, like you're with Penske Group, you have a really good shot of getting in the race. Here we are. They were just one bump away from not making the race. That would have been a huge story for so many wrong reasons if they did not get in the Indy 500. And it was surprising. I think it has to be a wake-up call for Penske and Chevrolet.
I completely agree with you, Joe. Normally, when we talk about Team Penske at Indy, we always talk about them being up front. You look back to the history, Rick Mears, he started on the pole a couple times. Al Unser Sr., when he drove for Team Penske in the Indy 500, started up front. See Will Power in the 32nd position for the Indy 500. That's really surprising to me. He really hasn't had a lot of, power so far. And if I was Team Penske, I would find a way to get him. I would find a way to get him some more horsepower in his Chevrolet.
Yeah, it was a really stressful day for Team Penske trying to get Will Power in the show. And luckily, he was able to get in the show in a really gutsy move during qualifying. He actually brushed the wall in turn two, and we all thought it was going to end in tears there for Will Power, but he kept his foot in it and was able to get a good enough 4-lap average in order to make the show. And still, after qualifying to get Will Power in the show, it still wasn't exactly a really great day for Team Penske. You still need to follow up and see what happened in the practice session after qualifying. But Simon Pagenaud was on track in practice, and a huge poof of smoke and coming from the rear. And it seems like it was an engine failure, but we'll have to go back and look at that and clarify to see what happened. But if you're Team Penske, you definitely don't want to see that happen to one of your cars, especially when you were struggling so badly in qualifying. But better for Simon Pagenaud to have that issue today than 1 week from today when it's time for the Indy 500 to take place. And it was a real stressful day. But nevertheless, Sage Karam, Will Power, Simona Di Silvestro made the show. So that in itself is a really good day. But for two drivers, it wasn't a good day. RC Anderson, Top Gun Racing, struggled to find speed all week long. They couldn't find enough today. They were the slowest, and Anderson got bumped from the field. Charlie Kimball tried to make a last-ditch effort to put the fourth AJ Ford racing entry in the field of 33 in the closing minutes. Unfortunately for Kimball, he couldn't bump Simona from the race. He was the 34th fastest, and he's going home alongside RC Anderson. Ben, Adam, were they the two drivers you expected to miss the field this year?
Unfortunately, yes. I said last night on social media that I thought Penske would find the speed for Power. Obviously, Simona De Silvestro's in a Penske-related car, and that RC Anderson, Top Gun Racing, being a brand new team, I thought that they would be, unfortunately, a pretty good. You have a pretty good feeling that they wouldn't be able to make the show. So I thought it was going to come down to Sage Karam and Charlie Kimball. And how about this? Third year in a row, Sage Karam is going to be starting 31st in the Indianapolis 500. So I think maybe some of that bump day experience, maybe he didn't let the pressure get to him or something. I don't know. But driving Reinbold, they definitely found some speed. So good for them to get another shot at the Indy 500. Will Power, like you said, even brushing the wall, kept his foot in it. I can't imagine what he must have been feeling like going into turn number 3, hoping that his suspension wasn't bent or damaged or anything. And then Simona, great to see her back in the IndyCar series and back in the Indianapolis 500 for Beretta Autosport in that predominantly women-led team there. But heartbreak for Charlie Kimball. I know he gave it all that he had there at the end. Unfortunately, just kind of the odd man out. And RC Anderson, I think being an Indy 500 rookie, the circumstances with a brand new team, very difficult. It was always going to be a tall order for him to make the show. I think they can hold their heads high and kind of regroup and come back next year.
I'll completely agree with you. RC Anderson really didn't have the speed at all during the month of May. He was normally toward the back of the field. So, I'm not surprised he didn't make. I'm not surprised that he didn't make the Indy 500. And Charlie Kimball, I feel sorry for him that he didn't get another chance, to do a lap in order to get in. But that's we shall see what happens with his team. Maybe as the season goes forward, or possibly in 2022.
And speaking of RC Enerson, I was really surprised to see his demeanor after getting bumped from what is arguably one of the biggest races in the world. I saw some photos of him after he got bumped, and he was on pit road smiling and in good spirits, and he was talking about potentially Top Gun racing. We might see them later this year at other IndyCar races. So the story's not over yet for RC Enerson, Top Gun racing, and for such a young driver who hasn't received a lot of opportunities yet. I was very impressed by his demeanor and his optimism looking ahead to the future. Because typically when drivers get bumped from the Indy 500, you see dejection on their face and a lot of disappointment. But RC chose to hold his head up high because he feels like this is just a brief setback or just a bump in the road. But moving forward, putting this behind them, Top Gun Racing can improve their program. And RC Enerson, like you said, maybe in 2022, he'll get a chance to come back and make the field of 33. And after bump day finished up, we went ahead with the Fast 9. We all said Honda was in prime position to take the pole, and we were correct. Scott Dixon, Chip Ganassi Racing on the pole for the 105th Indy 500 next Sunday. Dixon's 4-lap average was 231.685 miles per hour. Colton Herta and Rinus VeeKay starting on the front row alongside Dixon. Those two Ed Carpenter Racing Chevys, P3, P4, the only Chevrolet-powered teams to make the Fast 9. And looking at the results on row 1, Scott Dixon, Colton Herta, Rinus VeeKay. Row 2, Ed Carpenter, Tony Kanaan, Alex Palou. Row 3, Ryan Hunter-Reay, Helio Castroneves, and Marcus Ericsson. Without revealing your pick a winner, no spoilers, do you think the winner of this year's Indy 500 will come from the first 3 rows?
I do. And Kobe, I know you said no spoilers, so I really don't know what else I'm supposed to say here, but I think there are a lot of fast drivers in the Fast 9, a lot of experienced drivers in the first 3 rows. I think the winner is going to come from the top 9 starting spots.
I think the winner will come from the top 9 starting spots. I mean, so often we've seen where with this race, you're starting up front, it's going to be much easier compared to racing towards the back. But that's it. It is a really long race, and let's keep this in mind. 105th running, only 21 times the pole sitter has won the race. So I know Scott Dixon had it really great. He drew first for qualifying. He was the first one out. He laid down the fastest lap. Stuck all day, and then today, pole, a lot of people anticipating that pattern of 1-1-1 and then a victory. And it'll be his second Indy 500 win. But only 21 times that happened. The last pole sitter to win, Simon Pagenaud. So I don't see it as going to be a clear favorite, Scott Dixon. But definitely I think the winner's most likely going to come from within the first 3 rows.
Yes, I agree with you. I do think that the winner is going to come from the first 3 rows, although I believe you can start much further back and still have an opportunity to win the Indianapolis 500. And I know people have been talking about the aero package, wondering what the weather's going to be like on Sunday. Is it going to be warm or is it going to be cool? It seems like when it's cooler, it makes overtaking a lot easier with this IndyCar Oval Aero kit. But if it's hotter, passing is going to be more difficult. So if it's hot next Sunday and it becomes a track position race, you definitely want to start closer up towards the front.
Indy 500, of course, that's going to be a very exciting race next Sunday. And of course, we're going to have a special real live pre-race Sunday morning before the Indianapolis 500, and then Monday, grid wrap up as we recap everything from that weekend. And got to talk about a recap of World Rally Championship. I know just after Kobe and Adam talked about World Rally, and we were just talking about Autonic, you need a good clean race. We find out he had trouble and was out of the race. Essentially, the Portugal Grand Prix, where she was dominating, leading, slipped out of his hands. He was done for the day after sustaining damage similar to what his teammate Thierry Neuville sustained, in which contact, likely from coming out of a corner with that rear end, damaged the suspension, and before you know it, that wheel came out, axle loose, done for the day. It's the second time we've seen a driver out in the lead of a rally crash. Of course, we all remember Kyle Rovanpera, stage 1, first 5 minutes of the race the last time. goes out. Sebastian Ogier got the lead. With Autonic going out, Ogier finished third. Instead, we saw Elfyn Evans get his first win of the year, third for Toyota Gazoo Racing. So a tough break for Hyundai. Autonic, they really missed out, especially since we saw Ogier third place. How has this changed the championship picture, especially the World Rally Championship this year? Really short season compared to past seasons.
Oh, yes, definitely a really short season compared to past seasons. Only 12 races this year. Tonic now has 2 DNFs. Sebastian Ogier, no DNFs, and rarely made mistakes. That's probably why I picked Sebastian Ogier to win just about every World Rally Championship event. And I'll be honest, I did not have Elfyn Evans winning this weekend. Really surprised he did, but nevertheless, championship getting more competitive and looking back at Tonic's 2 DNFs, 12 races this year, those are mistakes you cannot afford to have, especially if those DNFs keep racking up, and everyone else needs to avoid those mistakes and just go out there and try to get wins. It definitely seems like all the time when we're talking about these races, Sebastian Ogier is always one of the rally racers to beat.
When it comes to World Rally Championship, we always talk about Autonic and Sebastian Ogier. Well, there may be another driver that could contend for the championship, and that's Elfyn Evans. We saw him win today in Portugal, and I know it's a short season, but don't be surprised if he finds a way to maybe win another round and at least is in contention for the 2021 World Rally Championship.
And of course, Elfyn Evans with Toyota Gazoo Racing, same equipment as Sebastian Ogier and Kali Rovanpera. Definitely, I think he could be a contender when it comes to the championship. And even though Sebastian Ogier continues to lead the World Rally Championship point standings, he did not pick up the lead for the grid ranking. Here is the full grid ranking for week 9. Of course, right now, Ogier tied in second place with Elfyn Evans, and then you can see Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton are right there rounding up the top 5. Overall, Shane Van Gisbergen continuing to lead. When it comes to next race weekend, we talked about Indycar, Indy 500, and then, of course, NASCAR with the Coke 600. But at Winton, we're going to have the Supercar Series, 3 races, a super sprint. Adam, when it comes to Winton, what are Shane Van Gisbergen's history at Winton and his chances of winning?
Well, Shane does have a win at Winton, and he could be a contender to win at Winton this coming weekend. But there's a lot of good talent in the Repco Supercross Championship this year. We always talk about SVG. We don't count out his teammate Jamie Wincup, or also Anton De Pasquale and Will Davison. I believe all 3 races at Winton will be really competitive next weekend.
Next weekend, I think it's going to be really competitive. Be very interesting to see if Shane Van Gisbergen can get that win and definitely have good finishes, maintain the grid ranking lead. And of course, it was a crazy weekend this weekend with all the drama in all the series. We saw Denny Hamlin with his poor race. He dropped to 10th. Autonic, he fell out of the top 10. And of course, in MotoGP, Pecco Bagnaia has now moved up into the top 10. It's been a long time since we had 2 MotoGP riders in the top 10 of the grid ranking. And of course, if Scott Dixon, who has the pole, if he wins the Indy 500, he would tie Lewis Hamilton at 17.12 points. So next weekend, IndyCar, MotoGP, NASCAR, and Supercar Series all running on Memorial Day weekend, but not running on Memorial Day weekend, Formula One.
Yeah, Formula One. I know it's strange this year, but the Monaco Grand Prix 1 week before the Indy 500 and the Coca-Cola 600. And this year's Monaco Grand Prix had a very dramatic moment that changed the race about 7 minutes before the start. Charles Leclerc, the hometown favorite, also the pole sitter, did not start due to mechanical issues with the gearbox. And an interesting fact, Charles Leclerc in his short Formula One career has never finished his home Grand Prix. Should Ferrari have just taken the 5-spot grid penalty, change out the gearbox instead of taking the risk that ended up biting them in the rear end?
Kobe, I don't even know what to say. I really don't. Ferrari they had such a bad year last year, and they finally go out and have a good race weekend. They're fast in practice. Leclerc takes pole in his home race in Monaco, but he crashes out as Q3 comes to an end. So if you're Ferrari, you have two options here. You can accept reality, accept the fact that Leclerc's gearbox is probably not 100% anymore, take the 5-place grid penalty, and trust that your hometown hero has the capability to work some strategy into the race and maybe come back and salvage a podium and have it still be a feel-good moment for the team. Instead, Ferrari decided to risk it, let Leclerc keep his pole position, and then on the formation, or not even the formation lap, coming out to the grid, Leclerc's gearbox turns out there's a problem there, and Ferrari looked like a complete embarrassment. I feel so bad for Charles Leclerc, and I don't know what needs to happen. Something needs to happen in Maranello. I don't know if everybody except the drivers needs to be fired. There needs to be a complete overhaul, but I don't understand what happened with Ferrari at all. It makes absolutely no sense to me. There was absolutely nothing to gain and everything to lose. It should have been clear that it was at the very best a major risk to take, and it ruined Charles Leclerc's home race on a weekend where he had a shot at the best Monaco race of his career, which wouldn't have been that hard to do considering he'd never even finished a race there. All the feel-good moments that could have come out of this for Ferrari in an era where they've been struggling to keep up with Mercedes and Red Bull, totally thrown away.
I have to agree with you, Ben. Absolutely threw it away, and I feel it was a risk. Yeah, you could have. Some people are calling it a risk, but I just feel like it was not at all the smart move to do. When he hit that wall, change the gearbox. Yes, you'll be starting 5 positions back, but you're going to gain points. Charles Leclerc, he could use pit strategy to go up. We saw drivers use pit strategy to move up. For the Ferrari team, they had the great car this weekend. And I felt they did a move where I could understand if this was something like Williams. Okay, they got the pole somehow. George Russell's on the pole somehow. He did this. We're going to risk it because we know we got to go back. But this is Ferrari. You got to get the points. You're in a big battle for constructor points. I just felt like this was really, they should have not risked this. They should have just simply gone with the new gearbox. I just still remember how shocked I was this morning when to see Charles Leclerc not start. I just thought this could have easily been prevented and should have never really happened. And really, there has to be a lot of questions about what is Ferrari doing.
To be honest, Joe, I don't even think Ferrari knows what it's doing. It's just a really unfortunate for Charles Leclerc. Another Monaco Grand Prix has passed and still has not finished his home Grand Prix. I'm sure Charles Leclerc is wondering, what does it take for me to finish my home Grand Prix? And you know how we always talk about, is this going to be Marco Andretti's year to win the Indianapolis 500? If Charles, I know we're still a few years into Charles Leclerc's Formula One career, but if this bad luck keeps happening at the Monaco Grand Prix, 5, 6, 7 years from now, are we going to be saying every year in the Monaco Grand Prix, is it finally going to be Charles Leclerc year to win this race? It just seems like there's like some kryptonite or something in the water and on the streets of Monte Carlo, and with Charles Leclerc not starting the race, I'm in an open spot at the front of the grid. Valtteri Bottas did get a good start, but Max Verstappen blocked him prior to the first turn. However, for Mercedes, not a good day at all. Valtteri Bottas retired from the race after a wheel nut was stripped and unable to remove the tire. Lewis Hamilton had the fastest lap, but he was stuck behind the 7th, and the strategy didn't work, and everything just really went wrong for Mercedes. And it just goes to show that you need to qualify up front if you really want to have a true shot to win the Monaco Grand Prix. Lewis stuck back there, overtaking really difficult. Couldn't make anything happen today, even for one of the most talented drivers in the world. It was an easy win for Max Verstappen, and he's now the championship points leader in Formula One. Could this be the championship moment that changes the battle between Red Bull and Mercedes?
Oh yeah, as we saw today at Monte Carlo, there weren't a lot of passing, and with Max Verstappen winning, I believe this gives him and the Red Bull team a lot of momentum going into the next round at another street circuit at Azerbaijan. I'm gonna call it, if Max Verstappen continues this, we could see him claiming the 2021 Formula One world title over Lewis Hamilton. Would I be shocked? No. But overall, it could happen.
Yeah, I know we just spent the last segment talking about Ferrari, but really not a good weekend for Mercedes at all. For both of their cars, obviously, Lewis Hamilton down in P7 for qualifying and much of the race, and then obviously Valtteri Bottas having a shot to salvage a podium for the team, and then the incident in the pits that took him out of the race entirely. Mercedes can't afford another race weekend like this, at least maybe until you get down to 1 or 2 races left. If you have a championship locked up, obviously, then it's over. But while we're in the middle of this championship battle, if they have another race weekend like they had in Monaco this week, all the momentum is going to be with Red Bull, and it's going to be, I think, very difficult for the Silver Arrows to recover.
Yeah, and at the moment, exit to Monaco, Max Verstappen leads Lewis Hamilton in the championship by 4 points. In our grid rating of Formula One drivers, only 2 points separate Verstappen and Hamilton. The next race is another street course, but known for high speeds and overtaking. I like to call it the Talladega of Formula One. Baku City Circuit at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, the second longest course in Formula One. Is the Baku City Street Circuit the perfect race to host the next round, considering how close the championship battle is at the moment?
Yes, this is the perfect venue. This isn't like some tracks where Spain, Hungary, where we see a lack of passing and it really comes down to where you're starting. Baku, you got that long straightaway to make passes. You got a lot of technical areas to gain ground. This is easily going to be, I think, one of the most watched races when it comes to championship implications for the year. Max Verstappen hasn't won there, but Red Bull has won there with Daniel Ricciardo. The other team that has won there, of course, Mercedes, Lewis Hamilton, Valtteri Bottas, they have won there. The big thing I'm going to be watching in this race is going to be very important for the team to have both drivers in the front row or at least in the top 2 starting spot. If Max Verstappen's up in the front with the 2 Mercedes and Sergio Perez is in row 3, 4, or further back, that's going to limit what he could do. Same if we get 2 Red Bulls and 1 Mercedes, that's going to really play into Red Bull's hands. So definitely qualifying is going to be the biggest factor, but this race is going to allow for some good racing between the 2, and I think it's going to be a really entertaining race.
I completely agree with you, Joe. And I believe the winner will come from either Red Bull or Mercedes when Formula One hits Azerbaijan. That should be one really competitive race. I expect a lot of passing there. And it could be one of the most watched races this year when it comes to Formula One.
And I think you're definitely correct to say that, Adam, considering Mercedes and Red Bull are the only 2 teams who have won on the streets of Baku. And Baku's certainly a Grand Prix that I look forward to every year. Is very unpredictable. We've seen some really wild things happen in Baku. You really don't know what you're going to get with that race. And I believe the last race we had in Baku, I was a little disappointed because it was more tame than the other versions of Baku. I'm really glad to see it back on the schedule once again this year. And 2 weeks from today, the Baku Azerbaijan Grand Prix. And all of our viewers, please let us know, who do you think is going to lead the drivers and constructors world championship standing after Baku? Is it going to be Sir Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes, or Max Verstappen and Red Bull?
It's going to be very exciting to see who leads the world championship after Baku in 2 weeks' time. And of course, next week, a lot of racing. So be sure to subscribe to the Grid Network on YouTube. We're only 2 away from 200. That'll be really huge. Definitely thank you to all the new subscribers and, of course, followers on social media as well. It's time for our shining moment, where each week we share our shining moment from the weekend, and we encourage everyone in the chat room to share their shining moment as well. Starting with you, Ben, what was your shining moment of the weekend?
Well, my shining moment of the weekend extends just beyond motorsports. It's Phil Mickelson winning the PGA Championship, becoming the oldest golfer to win a major. That was absolutely incredible to see right before we came on the air. But in terms of motorsports, I'm going to give it to Sebastian Vettel. Obviously, we talked about Ferrari when we started talking about Formula One. It's been a rough few years for them and a rough few years for Sebastian. And to see him finally start to have some success at Aston Martin, of course, every time you move to a new team, you've got to expect it to take a few races for you to get up to speed. But Vettel taking P5 today looked like the Sebastian Vettel of old. Ran a great race. Well-deserved driver of the day, winning that vote from the fans. I'm going to make him my one shining moment.
The Buckeye Bullets still got it. How about Dave Blaney winning for the first time in the World of Outlaws since the year 1997, 2 years before I was even born. So it's really cool to see Dave Blaney go out there and win against some of the best dirt racers in the United States. And Dave Blaney, he might be a little bit older now, but he still has the talent and fire and desire to go out there and win.
You took my one shining moment, Kobe. But overall, I think I'll have to give it to Simona Di Silvestro, all-female IndyCar team competing in the Indy 500. To me, that's pretty cool. I hope she does really well, and I'll give another nod to Dave Blaney as well. He's raced in NASCAR before. He raced. For the fans that don't know, the World of Outlaws Sprint Car Series is the top sprint car series in the country, and Dave Blaney has competed with some of the greats in that series, like Steve the King Kinzer, Denny the Dude Lasowski, Jack Audenchild. But my one shining moment has to go to Simona Di Silvestro and the all-female team getting a spot on the grid for next Sunday's Indy 500.
My one shining moment has to come from Alfa Romeo's team, Antonio Giovinazzi, getting that team to Q3. They started 10th. They got up to 9th on that first lap, continuing an impressive record he has of gaining position on the opening lap in just about every Grand Prix that he has been doing. Strategy got the best of him. Finished 10th, scored points. Considering it's Monaco, that team, he was far ahead of Kimi Räikkönen. That is my shining moment for Antonio Giovinazzi, the Alfa Romeo team, to score that point at Monaco.
Be sure to like
real quick before we go off. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I have to bring up Kobe. Kobe, your one shining moment as well. I've been a Dave Blaney fan for a long time. In my humble opinion, he's one of the best NASCAR drivers to never win a cup race. To see him get his moment in the spotlight once again this weekend was absolutely amazing, and I wish him nothing but the best. Such a great moment to see.
Yes, definitely a great moment to see Dave Blaney go out there and win. It's hard to believe his last time he won a race, like I said, 2 years before I was even born. Yeah, Dave Blaney, a lot older now, but went out there still getting it done on the dirt tracks. And be sure to like and subscribe to the Grit Network here on YouTube. Follow us on social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. And you can support us by investing in Grit Network through Patreon. Thank you, Colin, for your continued support. Welcome our new Patreon supporters, Mark and D-Shell. Really appreciate you for jumping on board here at Grit Network. Check out Pablos. Get something sweet for your furry pal. Grit Network viewers will get a 10% discount for any purchase. And looking ahead to the schedule this week, we'll have 1 or 2 episodes of Grit tonight, midweek. And then Thursday, a brand new episode of the Women Racing to Win. Friday, we have a new episode of Life on the Grid with IndyCar Radio Motorsports broadcaster Ryan Marine. Really excited to pick his brain, talk a little bit about IndyCar and sports car racing. And Saturday, we'll have Grid Live pre-race, MotoGP, NASCAR, Supercars, and Extreme E. And Sunday's special Grid Live pre-race show for the Indy 500. And on Monday, we'll do the Grid Live wrap-up for all of the races next weekend. For Joe Samniego, Ben Snyder, and Adam Lemery, I'm Kobe Lambert from the Podium Finish. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful week ahead.
Joe Samniego here. Want to invite you to go check out Pablos. Pablos is a dog clothing and accessory company based in Austria. 10% of each of your purchases goes to helping dogs in need, whether it's homeless, sick, or ill dogs. This is one of the reasons why we support it. Kiska here is a rescue dog from rural Alaska and our Grid office dog. We care about our furry buddies, and we know you do as well. Definitely check out pawbless.com. There's a link on the video description, and by clicking on that link, you get a 10% discount on your purchase as well.